Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
Our misunderstood verse today, Dr. Shabir, is from chapter 2. It's verse 240. And this is how it reads. Those of you who die and leave widows should bequeath for their widows a year's maintenance and residence. But if they leave the residence, there is no blame on you for what they do with themselves, provided it is reasonable. What are your thoughts on this verse, Dr. Shabir? Maybe you want to explain it a little bit more with the Arabic as well?
Yeah, so the verse reads, وَالَّذِينَ يَتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا وَصِيَّةً لِأَزْوَاجِهِمْ مَتَاعًا إِلَى الْحَوْلِ غَيْرَ إِخْرَاجٍ فَإِنْ خَرَجْنَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا فَعَلْنَ فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ مِنْ مَعْرُوفٍ. Let me give it my own.
Yes, why do you think it's misunderstood?
Yeah. So basically it is saying, as for those of you who die, leaving behind a widow, he should bequeath to her a year's worth of living expenses, and she should not be driven out of the home. But if she were to leave of her own accord, then there's no blame on you, provided that everything is done in a. The translation you read said, provided it's reasonable, or the Arabic term there is ma'ruf, which means according to custom or decency or what is to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to take this a segment at a time and to look at the problem here, this verse is prescribing at least a bequest for the surviving spouse, the widow in this case, the amount of inheritance that will be sufficient for a year of living expenses, and of course the right to the marital home. What's wrong with that? Well, of course, one might say that this is not on par with modern times in modern democratic societies where women are given more and more rights. Then one thing that's very common is that women own exactly half of the marital accumulation of wealth, and of course she would have a right to her marital home. So, which is similar to what is mentioned in this verse. The problem occurs that the Muslim scholars have interpreted this verse as being one of those they call abrogated verses in the Quran. Now, we spoke about abrogation in a previous episode where, in reference to Surah 2, verse 104, we said that what the Quran was speaking there about is the Quranic law abrogating laws which are in previous scriptures. Mm-hmm. But no, the Muslim scholars took that verse to mean that there are verses in the Quran which abrogate each other. So one verse may stipulate a law and another verse may repeal that law. So they're saying that this verse in question is stipulating a law that a man must leave a bequest for his wife. But then there is another verse in the Quran, actually 3 verses in total, from the 4th chapter of the Quran, verses 11, 12, and 176, which prescribes specific shares of inheritance for specified relatives, including one's wife. And they're saying that those specified shares now take precedence and repeal verses like this, which speak about a bequest for one of those persons to whom a share is specified in the 4th chapter of the Quran. So that would affect not only women inheriting as wives, but parents and of course mothers in general, because we find in Surah 2 verse 180 also that it is mentioned, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذَا حَضَرَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ إِنْ تَرَكَ خَيْرًا الْوَصِيَّةُ لِلْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. It is prescribed for you. The term there is kutiba, just like we know from a couple of verses later, from 183, that it says kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Fasting is prescribed for you. So it's very strong language. Kutiba alaykum, it is prescribed for you in case death comes to one of you and he's leaving some wealth, that he should make a bequest in favor of his parents, according to what is normal. So they're saying, no, that too is cancelled because parents are given specific shares in the 4th chapter of the Quran. Either a sixth each in case the deceased has children, or in case the deceased has no children, then the mom will inherit a third, and then the father will get the 2/3. So now for the wife now, the 4th chapter of the Quran prescribes that if the man is not leaving any children, the wife will get a quarter. And if he does leave children, then the wife gets 1/8 of his estate. Now, 1/8, you might say, is a paltry sum, right? Compared with like a modern democratic society in which a woman owns everything,
Half,
basically.
yes.
Well, she owns half, and then she naturally gets a good share of the inheritance. Of her husband's estate. The matter is further complicated with scholars saying that, if the man has multiple wives, then they share in the 1/8. So potentially, if the man has 4 wives, then each wife will get 1 out of 32 of his estate.
So how do we make sense of all of these verses then? Because you've mentioned a number of verses that speak about inheritance. And if we're not going with the abrogation view, that, one verse abrogates the other, then how do you make sense of all of the different parts of verses which say different things about
Actually, they
inheritance?
all fit together quite neatly, because the 4th chapter of the Quran, in verses 11 and 12, 3 times says that these prescribed shares are to be given after any bequests that have been made, and debts. So everybody realizes, okay, you have to take out the debts first, pay off all the debts, and then you divide the inheritance. But it also mentions, along in the same breath with debts, also bequests. So that means you could make a bequest. So when the 2nd chapter of the Quran in verse 180 spoke about bequests in favor of parents and relatives, and the verse in question now speaks about bequests in favor of wives, then that takes precedent. So we should say that the shares that are mentioned in Surah 4 will only apply if there are no bequests, or if after the bequests are given out, there is still something remaining in the estate to be divided according to these specified shares.
All right. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Shabir. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised 1/3 of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiya and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.